Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Babies with Knives. Today we have Paul Malco above me here. He is the creator of Union City Heroes, and we're going to be doing a character creation with him. Hi, Paul.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for coming back. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, me too. It's a real pleasure. Welcome back to Union City, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
I'm one of your hosts, Alice Peng, aka Lala Twiddle, and below me is my co-host, Brandon Powers.
Howdy, howdy.
Paul, why don't you get us started? I will show people page 4 of that PDF.
Absolutely. So, what we're doing today is making characters for the Union City Heroes role-playing game. It's a pretty fun, straightforward process. And the first thing you do, because while we have a good amount of numbers in the game, we are story and character driven. So the first thing you do is design a concept for your hero. So, like it says, concept is a basic description, a rough sketch, regardless of your artistic powers, your hero's name, and what they're all about, what motivates them. So, guys, let me ask you this: what heroes have you come up with today? What are you thinking?
So I was initially thinking about what duplication might look like, but that led me down a totally different rabbit hole.
Okay.
And going with a character, I'm going to use the name Spymaster, and that they very much are that kind of a mystique type as a hero that infiltrates enemy organizations, gathers information, might not be the best in a fight for straight up, punching somebody in the face, but gets a lot of information. So.
Awesome. Cool. I love it. Spymaster. Cool. And what about you, Lala?
I'm very torn. I'm thinking about making a cyborg.
Okay. Well, we've got an archetype that is specifically for cyborgs. What's the cyborg all about?
I was thinking about making something a little bit, bricky and a little bit of an inventor, but more the fact that I just start poking out and transforming little parts of my body to do things. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
My number one question is your catchphrase booyah?
No.
Well,
this is why I was like, maybe I should do the other ideas that I had.
That's not on your operating system. All references to booyah have been deleted.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
There are no booyah files.
Exactly, no booyah files.
Do you have a name for this cyborg?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's something to keep in mind. Let's move on to abilities then, because we've got Spymaster and we've got this cyborg who creates stuff. Abilities are like keywords or brief descriptors of what your hero can do. These are almost more like keywords for your character. So Spymaster might have like Master Infiltrator, Shape Changer. The same way Cyborg might have Brick or...
I was going with Metal Tough.
Yeah, Metal Tough. I love it. So what are some abilities that you guys think would fit with your characters?
So
I liked what you came up with. So
sure.
Just what was it, like Master Spy and Shape? How many
Infiltrator? So generally about half a dozen is a good point to be at with abilities. You can go more or less, but really what you're doing is setting yourself up down the line to be able to establish what your hero is all about, so that when the editor-in-chief is judging situations, because you're a spy master, you'll be able to do things that a spy master should be able to do without needing to make rolls or getting bonuses because of that. So it's really kind of establishing the high points of your hero and what their core abilities are. So, I think for you, something like Spy Master
Master Infiltrator, Shape Changer, Witty Repartee, Deductive Reasoning, Charming, and Hide in Plain Sight is what I've got.
Awesome. Perfect. And I don't know if they're a particular like hacker or interrogator, something like that might be another one you want to throw in, but that can also come later with your bio and skills. These are really just kind of like the core phrases that sum up your character. So what do you think for Metal Tough?
So so I decided on a hero name. The hero name is Alloy. So would the archetype and class be Cyborg?
Well, no, the archetype we're probably going to go with bionic.
Okay, bionic.
Bionic is one of the archetypes.
Okay.
So we can come back to your abilities if you want to look at archetypes because
no, that's fine. I've got
okay.
four concepts / an ability so far. Metal Tough, shifting limbs, like I was talking about. I was thinking about renaming that to whirling limbs, or something like that, because I
Sure.
picture it, whirling around and then shifting into things. So I'll change it to whirling limbs.
Maybe whirling, shifting limbs.
Whirling, shifting. Mechanical Whiz and Alloy Strong are the 4 that I have so far. Alloy Strong being my strength,
Yeah. And
I'll think about coming up with 2 more since you said we generally want about 6.
About 6 is probably a good number to have.
Okay.
Cool. So as we keep going, we can move on to Archetype. Because
Alice, when you say that you have whirring limbs, that is what I immediately think of. Is that the kind of limbs that you have?
No, it's not.
No? Okay.
Okay. So, Brandon, what were your other ones? I didn't hear your last 2 for 6 of them.
I ended up with 8 at the moment, and
Okay.
we'll see. But Master Infiltrator, Deductive Reasoning, Shape Changer, Charming, Witty Repartee, Hide in Plain Sight, Interrogator, and Hacker, just after what Paul was saying.
Okay.
Ways to get information, so.
Great. So we have
SEO enabled. Search engine optimization enabled.
Awesome. I love it. So we have a bunch of archetypes. I'll really quickly rattle them off, but I think it'll be pretty evident which is most fitting for which, but we can talk about a number of ones because there's really a lot of ways to build your character in Union City Heroes. So the archetypes we have right now are Animal Hero, Anti-Hero, Bionic, Blaster, Brawler, Cosmic Crusader, Gifted, Leader, Masked Vigilante, Mighty, Mystic, Paragon, Speedster, and Super Scientific. So, Alice, like I said, for you, Bionic immediately came to mind because that archetype is all about being a hero who is at least somewhat inhuman, if not entirely mechanical. But by the same token, you might want to be super scientific. That's really if your character utilizes science in a big way or technology, or if you're knowledgeable about science and technology. Brandon, probably for Spymaster, the Gifted would work well because that's one of the more versatile archetypes. It lets you specialize in something in a really unique way that you build. But something like Masked Vigilante or Anti-Hero might also fit depending on how you see your character.
Anti-Hero definitely was not one of the ones that I was seeing, but yeah, the Gifted I was looking at a little bit. It's all the middle of the pack. Leader I was wondering about, but I thought out of the options that I'm looking at that was probably the least applicable, though it could be an interesting way to take it. And then Masked Vigilante was the last. And so if you can tell us a little bit about the different options that those guys get.
Of course, absolutely. So we'll just go down the line, and we'll start with Bionic. Bionic is on page 16. As you can see with each of these archetypes, we kind of wrote up what our thinking was, what that archetype really encapsulates. And so in this case, it's about heroes that are somewhere between humanity and technology in particular. Also, androids, people who are striving for more humanity out of their technology, are good examples of bionic heroes. So with each one of these, we have a list of notable examples from the greater comic canon. In this case, Iron Man, Cyborg, The Vision, Machine Man, Tech Jacket, Red Tornado. Those are just a couple examples. We have more. But bionic heroes have good stamina. They have a fair amount of ranks with which to build, two different focus stats, and a number of archetypal abilities. So that's the real meat of what you get, the bonuses you get for choosing the archetype. And the description is really more about what that archetype is meant to represent. So that's the bionic. As we move on.
Before we move on, I do
Yeah.
find it very interesting that Iron Man and Cyborg are put into the same archetype. That because in most games, Iron Man would be the power armored character. That's the archetype that they get. So I just
Yep.
want that noted for our viewers that Iron Man and Cyborg are placed in the same. And by that measure, also the Vision is also put into the same category. So looking at those three, where in many games those three would be in three separate categories, they are in one category in this game.
Sure. And the same way that you can choose various archetypes to build your heroes, I don't think any one of those heroes is necessarily pigeonholed into that archetype. I mean, Tony Stark is obviously also super scientific. He's also a leader. But I think, especially with his the newer iteration of the cybernetic heart, or his arc reactor heart, or the extremist nanites, he steps more away from the power armor in more modern iterations than he did. When we were talking about 70s Tony Stark, yeah, he's a lot more of the super scientific. And the reason we don't have a class for somebody who is wearing power armor is because our archetypes tend to be a little more about the character, what motivates your character, rather than how they necessarily achieve their powers.
Well, moving on to Brandon then, for his archetype. What
And
page
the
is that
gifted
on?
on 24.
And just as a note, going through this book, it's beautiful because I'm using a PDF, but when you have this printed out, you're going to have the archetype and the description on one page, and the other page is a full-page, beautiful piece of artwork for one of Union City's example characters in that. And I just think it's fantastic. The artwork's really evocative.
Yes, and I'm showing people the page as you're calling it out. So page 16 I showed them, and now I'm showing page 24. And it is a very beautiful book by all means.
Thank you so much. And yeah, if you look at 24 and then, like Brandon said, scroll down to 25, that's the full page feature of Miscreant, who is our icon gifted character. So gifted is a class that allows you even more customization, because that's really what we're all about in this game. But this one allows for the most customization, because it allows you to pick the thing that you are best at that is not necessarily caught in any other archetype, and really focus on that in a unique way. If you see our list here of gifted heroes from the greater comic canon, you'll see it has an even wider spread than Bionic did, for example, which you had brought up, Lala. So our list of gifted heroes are Martian Manhunter, Invisible Woman, Aquaman, Rogue, Plastic Man, Beast Boy, Mr. Miracle, Animal Man, Iceman, and Mystique, as well as Union City's Miscreant, are all good examples of the gifted archetype. And each one of these characters, like Martian Manhunter, has extraordinary versatility as his real, the crux of his powers. Whereas Invisible Woman is obviously invisibility, Beast Boy shape-changing, Iceman, ice powers. So the gifted, for something like being a spy, is perfect for that, because you are gifted at being a spy. That's what your character is all about. So that was our thought process with the gifted.
That's awesome. And Iceman being on that list as opposed to being a blaster, I thought was interesting. But it works really well for like I'm assuming Human Torch is probably a blaster example. He's the first blaster example, in fact.
Yes.
And there, because sooner or later, fire is just going to just hit something. Iceman has some other options there, and so I kind of think that might be what some of that decision is on which one would go where. And I thought that was an interesting difference, like Alice was talking about Iron Man, the Iron Giant, and then Cyborg all being bionic characters.
And Vision, yep.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think there's a couple other ones that might fit your heroes, but I think those are the ones I would most recommend if I was your editor-in-chief. Are there other ones that you were looking at, you wanted to talk about?
Leader, I was kind of interested in, but I think that Gifted definitely fits better. And then for Mass Vigilante, unlike Gifted, it lists archetypal powers, and then it has some archetypal ability options. Are you able to pick powers outside of those recommended? Because the Gifted just tells you to pick 3 of your choice.
So you see, all archetypes have archetypal powers and archetypal ability options. And the way this works, this is a good time to bring it up. What an archetypal power is something that you are more adept at. So you're considered to be a higher class in using that power, which means you can get it at earlier class levels than other people would. And it costs you 1 fewer rank per level to get levels in that power. So you, when you choose those powers, that is not at all what you are limited to. Those are things you are focused in and you are able to get more of for less.
And then what's a signature power?
A signature power is the same, but more so. A signature power, you are considered 2 higher. Your class is considered 2 higher, and you buy that for 2 fewer ranks per level.
Now, keep going.
That's a way of taking an archetypal power and making it even more intense if you choose to. You see, most everybody can choose either an additional power, or they can designate one of their archetypal powers as signature. Again, like the difference between, say, Martian Manhunter is probably he took more versatility as opposed to Iceman, who probably had a signature power with his ice powers.
Or Rogue with absorption. Where would Multiple Man fit into all this? Since I initially started out with trying to think about a duplicator.
I would almost certainly put Multiple Man in the Gifted, because
that's what I expected to hear.
Duplication is a power, and to be able to do that more with less will be a very good thing. Because I'll show you in just a moment when we get to powers how we build those, and being able to reduce ranks per level and being considered a higher class will really give you an edge and make you much more potent with those powers.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go Gifted. Thank you for indulging me on what all the options are.
Sure. And if we keep going down, so you see each of these archetypes has a list of ability options.
Yes.
And so after the list of archetypes on page 41 is Archetypal Abilities. And this is a list of options you have. Each time at character creation and each time you gain a class, you choose one of these archetypal abilities.
So for archetypal abilities, are we limited to the ones that we in our class, or sorry, our archetype to start with? So I've got a list on page 16 for archetypal abilities for called Adept, Transformer, Armored, Hurl, etc. And it's got a bit of a list. Let me make sure people can see that. And so am I forced to choose out of that, and I choose one? Or can I choose other stuff, but it'll just cost me something?
Correct. You choose one from that list. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a fairly finite list. It's about it's 4 pages or 5 pages of options. So it's broad enough, but you can spend when you take powers, you can spend ranks to buy additional ability options as opposed to powers. So everybody has the ability to go back and get more of those. This is just one you get for free, and it is from a list that really represents what that archetype is all about. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, Adept Transformer, it's telling me I can reduce the amount of hero points I need to spend to transform self by 1. Is that, as somebody who's looking at shape changing being a primary power, is that what I'm looking at?
Very much so. Adept Transformer will really help you because normally when you have a transformation power, you need to spend a hero point, which is a limited resource, one you gain throughout combat and through story. But still, if you're an Adept Transformer, if you don't need to spend hero points or need to spend less of them to transform, it means you'll be able to do it a lot more frequently. If you have transformation powers, but without that, it's going to be it's going to take more for you to do that. And so if you want to be somebody who's constantly shifting and changing, Adept Transformer will help you in a big, big way.
So I'm looking at
Awesome.
taking Potent Transformer. Can you explain that to people?
Yep, of course I can. So we'll scroll down to page 44, and Potent Transformer at the top of the page there. Increase the number of ranks you get from Transform Self to allocate to new powers by 2. So when you transform, we'll go into this when we look at the power itself. But when you transform, you get ranks to assign to new powers. These might be used for like say wings or bigger muscles or
Drill arms.
Yeah, sure.
Fans,
Fans,
Alice.
big fans.
Instead of claws, I do fans. I
Right.
do war fans.
It did not end well for number 1 fan, just so you know.
But
it was shown off panel, but yes, it was apparently very gruesome.
It didn't start well for number 1 fan.
No, it didn't.
Number 1 fan had a rocky career beginning to end.
Yeah, X Factor during the new X Factor era, it was a very fun, entertaining, and laughing book, and he was in an annual, as I remember. So even right there, he's already got a mark against him.
Yeah. So the way these both of these archetypal abilities interact with a specific power. So again, it allows you the option to be better at the thing that you really want to be expert in, but they do it in different ways. Adept Transformer means you can transform more frequently with less hassle to it, whereas Potent Transformer means when you do transform, you have that transformation has more enhancements or more ranks behind it that can give you power. So for somebody like Changeling from the Young Avengers, who like grows claws or armor or wings, Potent Transformer would be really good because it means he can get more powers or more intense, make the new power he gains more intense each time he does it.
Yeah,
Beast Boy in the Teen Titans cartoon would probably be another really good example on that.
Right.
He comes in as a gorilla, and that gorilla is whooping people who's probably a lot stronger than a gorilla is.
Right, exactly. But yes, because Beast Boy tends to like change and then go with it for a little while, you know?
So, yeah, I'm definitely taking Potent Transformer because I can change my arms and legs into things.
Yeah.
You're just copying me. You're like, shape changing sounds cool. I should do that.
I mentioned it at my beginning thing before Brandon did the thingy.
So, one question and also one call out on page 45.
Yes.
First of all, I love this artwork. That's fantastic. But
Thank
second
you.
of all, strength through adversity. When you lose a grit, gain a hero point. Grit is like our hit points in this game, if I remember.
No, grit is like your hit points, but for willpower.
Oh, okay.
So this is what keeps you from being mentally controlled by people or forcefully transformed by a spell or something like that. It's kind of like a will save. But grit is what allows people who can do stuff like mental commands or psychic abilities to use those abilities, but in a way that's fair and fun for everybody to still have combat, you know?
Gotcha.
So in this case, strength through adversity is as you are losing your willpower, you're gaining hero points to hopefully be able to stay in the game. That
sounds pretty cool. All right, so yeah, I'm definitely going with my Adept Transformer, so that way I can shed forms without a care in the world.
Yep, absolutely. Great. And so if we scroll down to page 48 and statistics, stats is the next big step in character creation. So each of you with your archetypes was given a total number of ranks you get at character creation.
Yes.
So I've got those in front of me.
I've got 28 ranks.
Right, and Brandon, I
ranks
see
the
a
characters
30. Yep.
Wow, that's a lot more than I have. Oh wait, mine's only 28. I'm too short of you. Never mind.
Yeah, too shy, but you'll see it's a pretty potent resource. It's one you definitely want. So when we do this, I definitely recommend people do their stats in pencil, because as they do powers, it comes from the same pool of ranks. These tend to get mixed around a little bit. But also, before you assign these, you definitely want to take a look at your archetype and see which one of these is focused for you. Because focus stats go up by 2 for you. And so, Brandon, I think you have some choices to make.
I get to choose 2, yep.
Choose any
so,
2.
Looking at that, it's probably Charm and Intellect would probably be
yep.
the ones.
Absolutely.
I was looking at Strength and Intellect for the 2 I get to choose.
Perfect, and you get to choose 2 of that list of 3, right. Mm-hmm. I tried to do some versatility between the archetypes of what your focus stats are, and I think it kind of nudges you to fun ways of building these characters. So, based on the ranks you have, with statistics in this game, the number you have is a direct bonus to rolls of that kind. So each one of these points is a pretty is like a 5% bump for you in that given field. And the stats we have are aim, which is hand-eye coordination and hitting a foe; strength, which is physical power. It's a big one in superhero games, of course, and also goes into melee and thrown damage; charm, which is both your attractiveness and your charisma, but it's also your force of personality, and it determines the number of hero points you get from interacting with your anchors. Next, we have health, which factors into your stamina; speed, which is for your movement and your maneuvering, as well as chase, because in Union City Heroes we have chase scenes; agility, which is dodging hits; it's dexterity for like acrobatics, walking a tightrope, as well as avoiding being hit; intellect, which is knowledge and reasoning; and will, which is willpower, determination, and mental endurance. And that's what factors into grit, Brandon. So these stats you can put between 0 and 3 right now, and which will be boosted up to 5 if you have a bonus for being a focus stat.
Oh, okay. So that's what the bonus from the focus stat is it's going to basically get a +2. Okay.
Correct. So your focus stats, you can put 2s in right now, and then, like I said, put tentative numbers in what you feel these should be. And again, stats don't have to have any modifier. A 0 means like below average, not great at something, but not necessarily encumbered. Whereas 1 is an average person's skill with something.
And health here is not hit points, but it's one of the stats, right? So we put in health.
Correct.
Okay,
health,
great.
In this case, stamina is like hit points, and that's how long you can stay in a fight, not necessarily how alive you are.
Okay.
So depending on how you want your character to be, I mean, while Brandon, you might have like undeniably superior or superhuman charm, you might not. It really depends on how you want to build your character, because there's other ways with powers that you're going to be able to boost the rolls that rely on these statistics. So it's perfectly fine to have a character with 0s or 1s or 2s in most of these stats with no real extraordinary bonus, or to be a character with 5s across the board and no real ranks and powers.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let me lowball some of those then, just because in a lot of games when you come in, it's like, well, you're going to need to buff these up a fair amount.
Yeah. So right now I have 5 strength, 1 speed, 2 agility, 5 intellect. I think I'm going to bump that down to 4 intellect because I do want to be stronger than I am smart, but I'm pretty smart. So 4 will, 3 aim, 1 charm, 3 health.
Great. And that's absolutely the way to think about this. Like, I want to be stronger than I am smart. Therefore, I'll do 5, 4, 3 is a good way of looking at these right now.
Now we can only bring them up to 3, right?
No.
Correct.
Well, bring them up to 3 before your stat modifier. So I have
Correct.
a 5.
Yeah.
I have a 5 and a 4 because of that. Yeah. So I've spent.
Okay. Will is one of your focused ones. I thought it was strength and in.
My will is currently a 2.
Oh, I swore I heard 4.
No, my int's a 4.
Gotcha.
So,
Alright.
but yes, my will is one of my options. It's strength, int, and will are my 3 options for 2 selection.
And did you say that the focused ones are also at half cost, or is it just the +2 at the end? That
No. These are focused stats, so they just get a +2 with your powers. You'll get reduced costs.
So
that's
gotcha.
Two more steps away.
Okay.
Or am I there?
So all
What were
that
you saying?
said, I have spent 17 of my 28 points. So
Great.
that leaves me, a good amount to play with. That leaves me 11 points to play with.
Yeah, and depending on the number of powers you want, again, you might want to knock some of those down, but we'll see what happens when we get to powers. But before that, you're going to be able to get a couple ranks back, potentially, because the next step in this process is quirks.
So just for my numbers here,
Yeah.
Alice, are you ready?
Yes.
I'm going with 1 aim, 1 strength, 5 charm, 1 health, 1 speed, 1 agi, 5 intellect, and 3 will.
I haven't been writing your character out. I
Oh,
didn't know I was supposed
I thought
to
that
today.
you were, because you talked about, you made some mention that maybe
That's
you
it too,
do
but
it.
that's okay.
Today I
I'm writing it out.
Okay,
That's
good.
fine. So that's 9, 10, 14 that I just spent out.
Great, and which gives you 16 left.
16 left.
Yep. So next we move on to quirks, and quirks are your the kind of weird little things about you, drawbacks, weaknesses, things that are detrimental or unique to your hero. Quirks are almost always, to some degree, a drawback, but you gain ranks for taking them. So if you look at the list of quirks, I'm sorry?
What page?
51.
Go right down to 51.
Awesome.
So addiction is a quirk. Conscientious, which is if there are innocent people in danger, you take a penalty to doing anything that is not directly saving those people. Things like having a glass jaw or being just a regular person that negatively affect your stamina when you get hit by enemies. Overseen, like having an organization that is in charge of you or has some pull over you. Physical disabilities, things that are poisonous to you, like if you are allergic to magic or mineral from your destroyed homeworld, you could take that to gain more ranks. Like Tony Stark's arc reactor, you could be power dependent, which means you take penalties if one of your powers is ever negated or lost to you. A secret identity is a quirk that gives you more ranks because that's something you need to protect and jump through hoops. And these are all things that you're both taking to give your character more of a unique personality, to gain more ranks, and to signal to your editor-in-chief the things that you want to play with and that you want to be a part of your character's story.
So how many are we limited to?
there is no limit and there is no requisite number. You can have no quirks, or you can have, I mean, as many quirks as the editor-in-chief is comfortable with you having.
Okay.
And there's also the kind of catch-all that we have right now called minor drawback and major drawback. Those are both for you or for your powers. You could also have a power that has a minor or major drawback and get more ranks for that particular power.
Okay.
For example, like Beast Boy might have transform, but the minor drawback of it's always green.
I love, obviously you could have just done it as different ranks, but there's not a fighter at rank 1, there's really not a fighter for rank 2, and there's definitely not a fighter for rank 3, and It just made me laugh as I was going.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at rendered useless, but I'm looking at being rendered useless for more of my stuff, I guess, than just one thing, because I'm looking at basically being EMP vulnerable. It seems like if I'm a cyborg, an EMP would destroy me. So how would I best represent the EMP as a quirk drawback?
Sure, absolutely. I would probably say you'd probably want weakness, which is down on page 54.
Mm-hmm.
You have something you're really not good at dealing with. A techie who gets messed up by magic, an alien who cannot deal with fire, or a deaf hero who has trouble with sound-based things. You choose a minor quality and take a -5 penalty whenever a roll involves that quality. So in this case, you can take the minor or subset quality of EMP, or even parentheses like anti-technological, right? Because if you're all tech, then anything that messes with tech will get to you.
Okay. What if I want to be more debilitated than weakness of rank 1 of -5, though, is my question.
Sure. You could do something like you could take the DM could let you do a major weakness and just double it up, which is not a problem. You can also take
you could take weakness, and then you could take rendered useless on
you
your
can take
most
rendered
important
useless.
power.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play with these to kind of build that in. You could say
rendered useless works differently than most of the other, just straight up gain 1 rank or gain 2 rank. So would you like to explain how that works a little bit to our viewers?
Sure. You select one of your powers, and kind of as a caveat or a guideline to editor-in-chiefs, because this is none of this is set in stone. It's all in PDF, right?
Mm-hmm.
You choose a power that you have at least a third of your ranks in, and you choose a minor quality. In this case, again, we're going with EMP. That power is absolutely inert and useless in the presence of that quality. If you take this quirk, you get 1 extra rank for that power. Now, you can also adapt this to say that all your powers are rendered useless in the presence of an EMP blast.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could take a look at the number of powers you have that it would be applicable for, and then see how many ranks you get. That's an easy way of doing that. You could potentially apply rendered useless to all your powers and then rack up a number of ranks that way.
So by ranks, you mean like if somebody has 30 skill points to start with, the power has to have at least 10 ranks, or am I thinking too high?
It would be a third of the ranks that you applied to powers, right? So it would be the whatever.
So if I apply 10 powers, is it round up or round down?
Generally, in this game, we round up.
Okay. So if I've applied 10, I would need to spend at least 4.
Correct.
3.
He said round up.
Yeah. He said round down, I thought.
Nope, he said round up.
Round up. Yeah, I said round up.
Okay. No, I totally heard round down. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's a great way of doing this. And so we can look at powers and then come back and retroactively look at rendered useless.
Awesome. So I've noted that on my thing. So Brandon, what about you? What have you taken for your drawbacks and quirks?
I'm going to take not a fighter. That means whenever I get punched in the jaw, I'm going to take an extra damage because, well, I might be shape changing and awesome like that, but getting into the fight is not my bag, baby.
Awesome.
I'm going to get overseen that, the government or whatever secret agency that I'm working with, think very much of like Nick Fury with the Shadow Council in Avengers.
Yeah.
That they're not willing to let somebody that can just run around and change their face all the time loose without oversight. And so I'm working with them. I am looking at having a secret identity that, my mundane life is not one that theoretically is associated. And last is unknown origins. I don't really know where I came from. At some point, I, gain awareness and I have a lot of training and such. And things pop up from time to time that show me that I obviously had a life before, and it's probably not one that seems like it was very good to my current ideas. And so maybe I've gone through a brainwashing and a scrubbing to get rid of that, give me some amnesia. Maybe I got amnesia naturally and came back with a different attitude on life. But there's a history that'll come up and bite me. So that's 7 extra points, which brings me all the way up to 23 again.
Awesome. But beyond giving you those ranks, it's also given your editor-in-chief a ton of stuff to work with. You guys now have a big shadowy organization to work on, and for that person to utilize in storytelling. You've got your secret identity to explore with anchors and giving you grounding in Union City or wherever you're setting your game. And you've got all this these nuance to your character that you're building into your backstory as you design your character, and it's really what we're hoping for, especially with the quirks, but kind of with everything with our power design. And that's a great array of quirks, Brandon, and same thing, Alice. Like it really I think it perfectly fits your bionic character to have this decimating weakness to EMPs.
So I have a few others. I have 9 point. I have 8 points before the rendered useless. I have conscientious. That gives me 2 ranks back. Unknown.
I was so close to that one. I really liked it, but I thought it was bad for a character who's going to have to do bad things as a spy, basically.
Agreed. You might really, but that's a fun challenge. So yeah. Conscientious, I like. Yep.
Unknown origins. That in the process of becoming bionic, maybe I was dead and they brought me back to life, like Bloodshot, or I had a traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury, and I have half my brain replaced. Stuff like that. A couple different options. Weakness. The anti-tech EMP that we talked about for 1 rank.
Yep.
Power up rank. So I'm picturing that I'm working on a power source or a battery, and so if I have an issue and I have to take a panel to focus, I'm like, changing to auxiliary power, because if I roll a 1, I'm out of battery power. I'm like, okay, so take a panel to charge up, shifting to auxiliary power until I can go get charged back up.
Yep, perfect.
And I also took overseen, since somebody created this tech and they probably want to keep a close eye on this tech and keep some control over it, and thus control me.
Awesome. Terrific. And that, again, gives you a lot to either tie in with or commonalities between your 2 characters that can really make for a rich relationship as the story goes on.
So that gives me 8 points back before we even count the rendered useless.
Awesome. Great. And that moves us on to page 56 and the Powers chapter, which is the biggest chunk of character creation. It has the most math and numbers to it. I think it's also the most fun. If you're really into this kind of gaming, I think you're really going to love this. But hopefully, even if you're not, if you're into a more straightforward, story-driven, less mechanical gaming, you should be able to do this relatively quickly and easy if that is how you want to play it. So with your remaining powers, I think the best place to look is at page 58 in the powers list, which is a chart of all the powers that are available to everybody. Because, like I said before, even if something is not on your list of archetypal powers or whatever, you have access to it. Everybody has access to every power. It's just your archetype gives you things that you can acquire without spending as much rank-wise.
Okay. So my archetypal powers include adapted, armor, quality mastery, intangible, invulnerable, item, perception, ray blast. The list is significant, so I'm going to stop there. But I'm going to note my list.
Yep.
Write it down, and then I'm going to go back to page 58.
Yep.
And make sure. So how much cheaper is it for the ones that we are preferential to?
1 per level, unless it's a signature power, which is 2 per level.
Okay.
So the first one I'm going to point us to is a special power called Transform Self, which is the one that both of you are primarily operating off of. There's a lot of other ways to show transformation, but this is probably the most straightforward and the one that both of you are going to want to look at first. So Transform Self, we can scroll down to page 103.
Awesome.
And there on the page is Module Girl doing some self-transformation to catch a falling car. So you see, Transform Self is a special power. You can shape change part or all of yourself. When you do, you choose a single kind of role that will get bonuses due to your transformation. You must spend a hero point to transform this, and this transformation lasts for as long as you want. It does not cost hero points to return to your natural form. Brandon, as you know, you reduce the number of hero points you need to spend by 1. So for you, most transformations are totally free. And again, both of you, the transformation lasts for as long as you want it to. And then below that, there are a list of what we call variances, which are ways of changing the power. And the variance both changes how you can utilize the power and its ranks per level. So effortless transformation, you have because you chose it as an ability, Brandon. But you can take effortless transformation for +1 rank per level, which does the same thing, reduces the hero points when you activate it. Versatile transformation, which is selecting 2 different types of roles that are affected by the transformation bonus. Potent transformation, which is 3 types of roles that are affected, and singular transformation, which is you choose one thing that you transform into, and that's what you can do. That's what the power is, as opposed to transforming differently each time you do it.
So a transformer car to robots in disguise would take singular transformation, for example.
Correct, and you see singular transformation reduces the cost by 2 per level. So if you only have the one thing you can transform into, it costs you a lot less to take this transformation power each level of it.
And if it's a preferential, do we get? Is it still a minimum of 1, or can the first rank be down to 0?
It is almost always a minimum of 1 per level.
Okay.
There are a couple very, very unique situations where that is not the case, but it is almost always a minimum of 1, no matter how many variances or drawbacks you have.
Okay. So just to get an understanding, make sure I'm doing it right. Transform Self at level 1 would cost me 1 because I get -2 cost and minimum 1. So that cost me 1. So then I go up to level 2 and that costs me 1 because I get a -2 cost. And then I go and buy level 3 and that's 1 point. So I've spent 3 to get up to level 3. I go up to level 4, I spend 2 more. That puts me up to 5 points spent. And that brings me down to all the way to the max level of 4. Oh, and there's a 5th. So
there's a 5th one.
Okay, so then I pay 2 more for that costs 7, and I would go all the way up to level 7.
Yep. However,
Class 7.
Right now you are class 1 because Transform Self is one of your chosen powers. You can go up to class 2. You're considered to be class 2 for the purposes of Transform Self, so you can get to level 3 in this power for 3 ranks, which is virtually nothing.
3 points, 3 points is almost nothing. Okay.
And you might want to look at then potent transformation or versatile transformation to make your transformations that much better.
I already have potent transformation from that power that from earlier, from
You do.
abilities.
This is a variance, which means that you will get 3 different types of rolls that are affected by your transformation bonus. The one you have gives you
2 ranks to it. It bumps me 2 ranks.
Correct. When you gain, yep.
Now, what does it mean by types of rolls?
So a type of roll is attack, damage, dodge, overcome, or will. Not will. Hold on, I'm pulling up the resist.
So for the Mystique type, where you're not transforming so much and getting like super long arms, but you're generally staying within a pseudo-human anatomy and such like that.
So
where do you
like overcome charm?
Okay.
Because that will mean that you are more convincing when playing the role of that whatever you're impersonating. That the impersonation looks more compelling. That people are less likely to see through your disguise. That's where I would put that into overcome charm, and then same thing. If you want to gain bonuses, because you're not a fighter, maybe overcome agility or dodge, because shape changing allows you to move a little quicker to get out of the way of some of those attacks. It depends on how you see your shape changing being implemented.
So yeah, I'll take that potent, and that costs. So I'm now spending 9 points for that power.
Correct. Yep.
So I have
10 points left. Level 1 in Transform Self.
Yes.
Costs 2 of those points. Level 2 costs 3 additional, so at that point you're at 5. This is not counting reductions or anything. Correct. Do I follow that right?
Correct, yep.
Okay. And then what is the class? Because I see level 1 and 2 are class 1.
Right. That's the class you need to be in order to take that level.
Okay, and so what class are we?
We're first level, so we're class 1.
Your first level, you're class 1, but if you've taken it as one of your chosen powers, then you're considered to be class 2. If it's a signature power, you're considered to be class 3.
How do we make it signature?
You just designate that. Everybody has a choice of either taking an additional power or taking a signature, choosing one of their powers as a signature power.
Okay, good to know.
Yep. So again, because whether it's favored or signature, you can both get to level 3, but neither of you can get to level 4, because even if it's a signature power, you'd need to be class 2 in order to get to that.
Gotcha.
And you can see that when you transform in the description on each level, so level 1, for example, you can alter a small part of yourself or shift your appearance in a minor way. Receive a +2 transformation bonus to any kind of role that you choose. You can spend an additional hero point to gain 2 ranks to gain new powers when you are transformed. So Lala, when you do that, you will gain 4 powers, or 4 ranks for new powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon, in order for you to do that, you just need to spend 1.
Now, if I took effortless transformation through the power, at that point I could claim that automatically, right?
Automatically, yep.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I mean, we had a great time playing, but being able to get into the nuts and bolts of the system and see how some of that's working is awesome.
Right.
Yes.
So you can double up on your effortless transformation, which means like you're so good at it, and like you don't need to spend everything. So there's a lot of ways to play with how you're able to build your character using the ranks and these variances. So you can.
I'm going to go with transform at level 3. I haven't needed to dedicate it to a signature. Base cost would be 8 at the moment, and I'm going to see what else is interesting before I figure out, what if it's going to be my signature and what variances I might be using on it.
Sure, absolutely. So Brandon, I think one you were going to want to definitely look at is deduction.
Yep, that's on my list. That's where I was when we jumped over to transform self.
Right. because Deduction is like built for detective spy characters. It allows you to use overcome intellect, which is another thing you might want to boost when you shape change, though I don't know if that fits with your concept. Um, uh, but then again, I as a Spymaster, right, I can see as editor-in-chief you saying, I get a bonus to my overcome intellect wills when I transform because I'm spying. Therefore, it's easier for me to gain access to information.
Yeah.
And as editor, I'd be like, yeah, cool, I buy that. Or if I was a jerk, I'd be like, no go, bro. Change your concept. So deduction is specifically to do that. It allows you to make intelligence overcome rolls. And if you successfully do that, not only are you going to get information from the editor-in-chief about the story, the thing you're researching, but it's also going to give you bonuses and maybe even hero points to act on what you've deduced.
That's awesome. I'm just reading through.
Sure.
And I'm probably, I don't know, well, maybe I could get to class 3. It depends on which one. But getting that transform self after you rank up to class 2, being able to say that you would be able to put up is pretty interesting to me. So.
Yep. There are also things that aren't necessarily power. We call kind of everything a power, even though things aren't, it's not necessarily inborn or genetic like that. For example, like base of operations. It's just that. It gives you some kind of headquarters. You do not need to take base of operations in order to have a headquarters building place that you call your own. It's just that when you take the power, you get manifest bonuses that are related to it. So with all these things, like you could very well have on your character sheet the ability, sweet base of operations or Batcave, whatever, and not take any ranks in this power. It's just how important it is to you and how much of a bonus you want to get to rolls based on that power. Some other good ones to look at are like bravery, which helps you with overcome and resist rolls.
That one's on my list.
Yep. Since you're a more clever character, that I think would fit better with you. Alice?
Mm-hmm. I have a bunch already written down so far.
Awesome. Great.
So.
Yeah. I don't know if you're able to just transform your limbs or if you're able to detach stuff. If you're able to detach stuff, you might want to look at create or summon are good ways of representing that.
Mm-hmm. Anatomical separation.
Yeah. And then it as a transformer, a character who transforms a lot, it might be helpful to if you take a look at the second page of the character sheet. I have the little power cards. Mm-hmm. So filling in both ones for transform and maybe ones for things that you commonly transform into, like when you're using like your dodge servos, you get expert evasion at this level. You generally put those ranks into this. It's just kind of a way of having quick references, because you can on the fly, when you gain those ranks from transform self, pick something that's appropriate to the situation. But it might also be helpful to look at other suites of powers that you will more frequently use and have them ready to go, just to keep the game moving, and because, like, hey, it's extra character creation, and for a lot of people, that's a favorite part of the game.
Quick question. I don't. Maybe I'd take it, but leadership. How long does leadership last?
Yeah. So the first
there, I see it on rank 2. I'm looking at rank 1, and I didn't see the duration.
I see that. I actually think that's on
plus 2 bonus to the chosen roll 40 page. There it is, just right in the middle.
Yep.
So hinder to work, you don't have to beat down their grit. That's just something that can go on somebody, and then influences however you're hindering them. Correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Hinder, but you do need to hit with an attack.
Yes.
Now you can do hinder, like if you were like a Spider-Man and you're chatty and you hinder a person just by annoying them, you can take something like I think easy hindrance means you don't need to hit with an attack. There's a lot of different ways to utilize these powers, the bonuses that these powers give you in your character. Because the other thing I should mention is, as we're designing these powers, for each of these, you're going to choose qualities that are linked to them. And we've talked a little bit about qualities, but now's a good time to get into them, because both you as characters have a list of qualities that are associated with you, and your powers have, each of them has either the same qualities or different ones that are associated with them.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the character sheet for the ranks column, am I supposed to put the ranks that I've spent in total, or am I supposed to put the ranks? Okay, so I've spent 9. Okay, I have my my list.
Great. What do you got?
So transform self, I put it as potent. So at level 3, I've paid a total of 9 ranks. So I have in the third column 9. Okay. In armor, I have level 3 and I've spent 3, so that's 3 ranks. In super strength, I have a level 1 because it's outside of my sphere, and that's 2 ranks. Transport, that's once again back in my rank. I was figuring, either that my feet could turn into roller skates, or I have rocket boots, that kind of thing.
No legs, rocket boots, yeah.
Exactly. So transport at level 2 with 2 ranks. Perception, because, Oculus implants, etc. So level 2 at 2 ranks, and invulnerable, level 1 at 1 rank. That spends all 19 points of mine.
Not as awesome as you are right now on knowing where to be, but I'm okay.
So quick question, now that I've gotten this figured out, I believe based on the limitation on rendered useless, since I had 19 points to spend, the only power of mine that qualifies for rendered useless would be transform self-potent, as I spent 9 points in that, and everything else was 3 or under.
Big time. What are some of the ones that you spent 3 on?
3 or under. Armor, I spent 3. Everything else I spent 2 points or under, because they were all within my suite, so they were really cheap.
Sure. I mean, I'd be comfortable as editor-in-chief to say that you can easily do rendered useless with armor too, if you wanted to grab another rank there.
Okay.
But that being said, you might want to just keep it with your transformation, and hopefully, if there is an EMP blast, your armor can still do something to save you. It really depends on the concept how you feel. Yeah.
I'll do that. And so how do I input it into my character sheet? Because it's a +2 ranks, what does that mean? Do I put it on top of the 9 points that I spent and put it as 11 ranks, or what do I do?
So no, you can just take those ranks and you can use them elsewhere.
Okay, so I get 2 more points to spend elsewhere now.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And you remember, you can always go back and boost one of your stats if you want, because those are, 1 per rank. Or you can look at other powers or boost up one of those other powers you have.
But we're still capped at the 3 on stats, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You said we can look at abilities, right, as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And those just cost 1 or what?
You mean stats?
Archetypal abilities.
No.
Oh, Archetypal abilities. Yes. I'm sorry. Let me. I think those cost 3 ranks.
I only have 2. Well, let me see. Maybe I'll start fiddling and changing.
There's a lot of that. I mean, as you get to this point, I'm looking at that right now. I'm inclined to say 41. No, it's not there. I will find it while we go on.
So, a question to you as an expert on Union City Heroes. For me, where I'm trying to come up with a way that that being a Spymaster, getting information and things like that can have an effect in the game. I've got a short list of ones that jumped out at me with what I've been working with: bravery, deduction, hinder. The old "you don't know who you're punching" gag. Which one of us is, or all sorts of that I might not be able to beat you in a straight up fight, but I'm going to cheat and let somebody else beat you up. Leadership was one that I liked just because maybe I can leverage information that I've gained to, come up with the plan on how to approach. Perception, just for that heightened senses. Regeneration, that one is probably the least important, but with the morphic body,
forming back. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. And then stealth for, once again, being, spying, this time not just trying to bluff your way through, but to not be noticed.
Yeah, stealth I would definitely take big time, because that I think would allow you to use your shape change in ways like, hey, can I just transform into a guy who looks totally in place here and keep my head down? And I think that's a good way to utilize stealth in that way. Or also like, hey, can I chameleon to the color of this wall?
Yeah.
Archetypal abilities are page 41.
Yes, they are. And on page 11, in the beginning of Archetypes, the note says, each archetype has a list of ability options. You select one archetypal ability for each class your hero has. You can acquire additional abilities from your archetype, just like powers, for a cost of 2 ranks each. You can also buy abilities from other archetypes for a cost of 4 ranks each. Most abilities can only be taken once unless otherwise noted. So, if it's from your list of archetypal abilities, it costs 2 ranks. If it's from a different list, it costs 4. So, Alice, I think those 2 you have will allow you to grab another one that might be very helpful for you on your bionic list, which I'll scroll down to right now.
Absolutely. I'm looking at them right now.
Ooh, Alice, did you see Big Hits?
No, I did not.
Because I like Big Hits, and I cannot lie.
I have not seen Big Hits.
That's not on your list as a bionic, but yeah, Big Hits is good.
Yeah, I took Super Strength instead of Big Hits because I wanted to be more versatile on that. And
you might want to also go with Potent Transformer. That's on your list as bionic, so that, or Adept, because that if you're big into transforming, Adept and Potent will really round you out.
Let's look. So Adept Transformer, that will reduce the amount of hero points spend on transform self by 1, and once again, yeah, sure, I'll do Adept Transformer, selecting bionic for it, obviously.
Yep.
Awesome.
Now, extraordinary talents, can you run that one down for me?
Yeah, what page is that?
That is page 42.
Yep, of course. Oh, yeah, if you're gifted, you can just gain 3 ranks.
So basically, since I've already selected one, but I can just take 2 ranks and turn those into 3 ranks, but I can only do that once, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so now I'm ready to move on when Brandon is.
For extraordinary talents, the thought was like, if none of these are particularly what you want, you just want more ranks for your specific thing, then go for it.
Question while Brandon's
yes.
looking at stuff. Hero name, archetype, and class. What was my class, or is that just?
Oh, you're class 1. That's
okay. Class 1.
Like level.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Because
class is level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Powers have levels, characters have class, and it kind of fits with the oh my god, he's a class 10 hero.
And qualities. What qualities are going to be listed there?
Let's do qualities. Well, actually, hold on. Let me scroll down to the page, and I'll give you where we're going.
Sure. And at this point, I've stopped showing too much of the PDF of your book because people have gotten a good sense of it. We want to make sure they still buy it.
Yep, of course. So bio is on 109, and we'll come back to that, but we'll fill in qualities really quickly because this is something I want to talk about. It's another way that we allow for a lot of customization using these powers we just had. Mm-hmm. Qualities are elements that affect your hero and your powers. So, for example, a shield that is metal and physical is different than a shield that is made of fire or one that is made of ice. Each power is made of at least one quality, and many have a combination of major and minor qualities. So, the reason we tag all these things with qualities is both to define what they are, because again, you could take shield. Both of you took transform self, right? But the way you're doing that and what it means for you is very different. While each individual character has a list of qualities, most are physical. Like if you're not a ghost, you have the physical quality. You're probably biological or animal. I mean, with you guys, I think technology might be one. Brandon, genetic might be one, depending on how you get your powers. There's also the minor quality of mystery, which you might want to take, because if you don't know where your powers come from, you don't know whether they're extraterrestrial, genetic, whatever, magical. You might want to just tag those with mystery, Brandon.
Question: how many qualities should we look at taking?
At least one, but however many are appropriate to describe what you're doing.
Okay.
So, like, if you're an alien energy vampire, then take all of those. And if you got here in your spaceship, take that technology too. It's everything that applies to you, because it balances itself out, because both you're going to get the benefits whenever those things come up, and you'll have the advantage against them. But at the same time, when there are things that affect them negatively, you're going to be liable on the other end. So really, whatever fits with your concept is the number of qualities you want to take. And while this is a pretty extensive list of qualities, the list of qualities is infinite. I mean, right now, like, I think the first thing somebody pointed out after I put the list out was, you have light on there, but not shadow. I'm like, yep, shadow, darkness, these are all totally appropriate qualities. It's just that we could go on forever. The minor qualities list is, in theory, infinite. So whatever quality you think of that fits your character or your power is what it should be. And just talk about it with your editor-in-chief, because there are things that don't exist. Kryptonite would be a quality for Superman, a unique minor quality, but one that nonetheless is a major factor in his story. So, while this is a pretty extensive list, it's by no means conclusive. So with you, Alice, I would definitely think technology, metal, physical, yeah.
Yeah, I've taken physical, metal, technology, and expertise so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And those might directly be you and your powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if one of your things is a flamethrower, when you shape change, like, obviously that should have the flame quality with it. And you could do that when each time you transform is pick different qualities, if that's something that fits into your concept.
Yeah, okay, good, because I was just about to ask that because, like, one of my transforms basically creates a taser if I add electricity at that point.
Sure.
Okay.
And that's, again, this can vary from character to character. Like, if you're coming up with a character who's, made of plants but can transform into different things, but each time it's just plants, then, like, no, your character should have just the plant and physical quality each time, as opposed to somebody who, say, magically transforms and can turn into, flesh or metal or acid or whatever. And in that case, they should take the different quality each time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I've got my qualities picked out then.
Great. What were you thinking, Brandon? Just roughly, if you're that far.
No, I'm still working through powers. So hindrances, they're base hindrance. I have to hit them, but this could be basically like mental games that I'm playing. Is that, like, you're in the bad guy's base. They're like, oh, I'm going to launch my missiles, and it's like, well, I've been here for this long. Do you think I haven't taken those missiles out?
Yeah,
and things like that, and that they at that point will be like, oh, wait, what's gone on while they were here?
100%. Yeah,
okay.
That is absolutely a way of using hindrance. And yeah, again, if I were you, I'd take the one where you don't need to hit to do that, the variance. But if you wanna, if you don't have the ranks for that, or if you wanna try to explain, if that fits in your concept where you feel like you should have to make a roll and hit for it, you can totally do that. And same thing, your editor-in-chief might say, the way this is written, for hitting with an attack, it doesn't work for us. So I think it's just as fair to say that you need to overcome their grit in order to hinder them, and we'll do that for the same cost. The system should hopefully lend itself to being easily adaptable to fit whatever your concept is, and that's why we do concept first as the base of each hero.
Mm-hmm. So for my transformed self, unlike Alice, I'm looking at transforming within human variances,
Yeah.
maybe slightly altered human, but human. Now it's not quite the transformer thing that you've got the one shape that you're morphing between.
I would look at the quirk minor drawback and just say, I have a minor drawback. I turn into humanoids.
Okay.
And so yeah, maybe like if you want to turn into a Sasquatch, it depends. Like maybe the editor in chief will make you roll an overcome to see if you could do that, or they say, sure, that's humanoid enough, go for it. But if you want to turn into a tentacle monster, they say, no, go. You can't even roll for it. That's not what your power does.
Yep. So for perception, just to say that you've got heightened senses because you're really trained at that, that would be something that perception would be legitimate for.
Of course, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Like qualities, this is a pretty extensive list of superpowers, but most of them have a good amount of things that they could apply to. I didn't want to go crazy with this. I think it's complicated enough, and I think it's right in the sweet spot of where I personally like it, and hopefully a lot of other people do too.
So I'm just trying to figure out all my math here. So.
Yep. Like I said, the powers is the most time-intensive part because there is a little more math involved in it, and there's a lot more decisions. There's a lot more options, so that's...
But I think that it's a lot of fun. Alice, I know, got through her stuff real fast, so...
Well, we got...
That's okay. You were ahead of me on concepts and abilities, so...
Yep.
I just went to flesh mine out a little bit more. So I added a traveler on the information highway. I was trying to figure out a cool way to do the fact that I was connected to the internet. So traveler on the info highway sounded good.
Big time. Yeah, I like that a lot. And yeah, these should be hopefully poetic or punchy or something that you could see as the tagline on the cover of a comic with this character. Yeah, and then so finally, Alice, since you're beyond qualities, we can look back at page 109 and do bio. So with everything else in place, we want to talk about hopefully where you come from and your role in Union City. So this is going to be like where you live, how you make a living. Is that government organization taking care of you? Do you not need to eat? Do you have an apartment, or do you live in a government base, or do you wander the streets? You're also going to, while you do this bio, draw a list of skills. And this is a little more specific than your concept. It's kind of like abilities, but just for stuff that your character is good at, like
I'm a hacker.
Are you
or something like that?
A journalist? Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Your career, mm-hmm. Maybe for you, intimidating is one, and what that means is that in most given situations where you're utilizing that skill, it is assumed you will succeed, and if you ever are tested at that skill, you get a bonus to overcome. So good examples are things like that: paramedic, photographer, bouncer, whatever. These are things that your character was not even outside of being a superhero is good at. And you're also going to come up with an anchor, which is someone, hopefully a civilian who lives and works in Union City, who you care about.
So 2 things about what you're just saying. One is for anyone watching this and going, "Ooh, I want to make somebody that I can just take a billion skills and therefore never have to worry about failing something." It does say that the editor-in-chief should limit you to about 3 to 6, with the exception of if you're a prodigy, maybe they'll let you have more. So I'd be looking at capping at 6 unless I'm specifically a type of prodigy for that. And the other thing is, I think it's interesting that for most games these days, they don't your character history isn't part of the character build, and so it's interesting that you found a way to incorporate your character history into the build.
Well, I feel like for most superheroes, regardless of what archetype they fall in, with the exception perhaps of antihero, everybody has people, non-powered characters in their lives who they care about, who they can talk to, who they go to for relief, or who they have to shelter from this superheroic life. Spider-Man needs Aunt May and Mary Jane. Superman needs Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, and even Batman needs Alfred and Commissioner Gordon. For an editor-in-chief, this should be a way for you to explore your superhero's humanity, to show a different angle of how superheroics affect the life of people in Union City, and also as a great way of engaging with storytelling, right? It's a way of giving leads, bringing out story hooks, or even putting those people in peril in order to motivate your heroes to greater acts of heroism.
Cool.
So what were you thinking for your bio, Alice?
I'm writing it down right now, and then I'll give you a spiel.
Yeah. We want to... Being superheroes, of course, a big part of it is, the combat, and you saw that with the first time that you guys played Union City Heroes. It was one huge combat against a single supervillain.
That was epic, man. That was epic. By all means, I had a great time. Alice and I talked about it, and I mean, I did it kind of. We just come back from break. You told us that we were going to Phase 4, but so I had it ready. But I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Phase 4.
And that's one side of the superhero genre and the game, and the other side is, I think, the humanity and the connection with people, and so that's that is why this is an integral part of the character creation process, and one we want you to give a lot of thought to, and not just as character creation, but ongoing, because in between combat scenes, the way you get hero points back is by interacting with your anchor, by going and having scenes with and being present with these people who your actions affect in different ways.
Okay, so I've got a pretty good idea of the character history. I just jotted down some quick notes. So I was looking at the fact that as a child, I came down with a mysterious illness. I was in and out of hospitals a lot, dealing with being weak, being sick, probably something that ate at my bones, given the history of it. And as the medical bills started piling up, my parents gave me up. They abandoned me because, if they abandon me, they don't have to pay the medical bills, and they don't have to worry about me not getting treatment, because I then become a ward of the state. But I got sponsored by a megacorp that had a lot of money. That took me into for experimental treatment for my medical condition. And while my parents had, legally abandoned me, I was still keeping in touch with them until I was taken away to this secret lab and tested and experimented for treatment, at which point I basically, was wiped of memory and such, or my memory was altered, and I don't know where I came from. And and I was figuring that one of the lab techs, one of the lab interns, was someone I had befriended. And I'm, pretty young-ish. I'm looking at like being 17 or 18. And during the time of coming in and checking in on me and seeing how I was progressing and changing and taking notes on me, that we had become friends.
Nice. So, another option, and it's something that's should be open. I should have put it in the bio chapter, but will be in the print edition. Is another option that should be open or available to explore for people, is if you have the kind of character like yours, where they're just escaping from a lab or whatever, you want to be at the start of their story. It's totally okay to ask your editor-in-chief, like, hey, can I open up with no anchor, and can we meet somebody in this first issue or so? And just know that as a character, you're not going to get the ability to refresh your hero points until you make a connection to somebody. That's a really engaging way of making the anchor live. But I like your lab tech, if that's what you want to go with. I think that's
Yeah,
a nice
the lab tech
connection
intern. Yeah.
in dark mystery. Yeah.
And I think that he or she maybe they don't know how dark the corporation that is sponsoring them is yet. They're an intern. They're just getting in. They're like, this is a huge opportunity, and they don't know
Yep.
what everyone's up to. They think that the corporation's only saving lives. So as for my skills, I was looking at computers, or basically hacking. I was
Yeah.
computers hack. I don't. Should I do hacking or should I do computers? I wasn't sure.
Either one is fine.
I'll do computers. That's a little more broad, and maybe I'll be, a low-end hacker on that just because of the internet stuff. I was looking at an understanding of medicine.
Okay, sure.
Medicine and anatomy, because while I don't have my memories,
All these charts of yourself and all these,
while I don't have my memory, this is something I have basically been a patient all my life, and that's something you build up an understanding of. I can attest to that from real life.
Yeah, maybe something like anatomical knowledge rather than like medical expertise would be more appropriate, right?
Well, also the fact that they're giving me pills of all sorts, and so I start looking it up on the internet and start understanding, and then start understanding, well, what it does to my cells, what the side effects are, and such like that. And so I thought medicine was very appropriate for that.
Yeah.
But those are the only two skills I was thinking of so far.
That's
So
fine.
I'll keep
You don't
thinking
need
about
to
it.
go crazy. You know, this is open to explore down the line.
Cool.
Like the editor chief is going to want to kind of tread the line for when after a couple of sessions, if somebody says, "Hey, I really should have the skill skateboarding," like, sure, go for it, but also not letting somebody be like, well, you know, each session you're adding a new skill. Like that's really not how it's supposed to work either. So, yeah.
Okay, I got my
good
powers done, I think.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. So I am going to grab rank 2 in deduction, which would normally cost me 4. That's one of my... I get 3 powers, and I only took 3 powers. So that would cost me 2 points at that point, I think. Oh,
Good.
I might have paid too much for that. I might have a few points left. Transform self, I'm going to grab effortless, and I'm going to grab potent.
Yep.
That I'm focused in on that. I've got that minor drawback of humanoid forms only, which gives me 1 extra point to spend on it, and so that's going to cost me 11 for rank 3 on that one.
Yep.
That is my signature, and that's the reason it's so cheap. It was 17, and then it drops to 11, 10 with the minor drawback.
That's
and
what your powers for, to make you specialized. Yeah.
And then I'm going to take stealth, which you can get all the way up to rank 3 as a class 2, which I am. And so there, for deduction and stealth, there weren't any variances to choose on them, so they're just normal. Yep. I put deduction as expertise, my transform is an unknown, and the stealth is a combination of expertise and the unknown from the transform.
Yep. Perfect.
Because I was looking at it, and I'm like, well, if I just take the effortless, at that point, all these other powers that I'm looking at, that these might be useful for me, I can literally transform into those powers.
Yep. And that's absolutely what it's meant for. And that's so as you go down the line, you can do your transformations where you're pulling up more evasion powers, where you're pulling up more deduction powers, etc.
Yeah, I went and bought Potent Transformer as well, which is also in my list of options to make me even better. And then I was looking at Virtuoso, was going to buy that, but then I'm like, well, I don't have that many powers, so I don't need to make a bunch of different powers cheaper. So I've got Force of Personality and Heroic Fervor, both of which are outside of my avenue, and I just wanted you to go ahead and break down the best ways that those are being used to make sure I'm following.
Sure. Let me go to that page.
So that is 42. Heroic Fervor, I add my charm to my grit, which sounds awesome because that makes me stand up to like mental opposition for longer.
And, for the kind of character who might be captured, who might be interrogated, like that makes a ton of sense to me. Absolutely.
And Charm being my best of those abilities. But then Force of Personality is whenever I roll an Overcome, I add Charm to the roll as a bonus. So adding +5 to Overcome sounds pretty awesome. And so I was just wondering on your thoughts on the difference between those two for which one I might be more interested in.
Ooh, that are you more aggressive or more defensive? I'd say you're probably more aggressive, but if you're more interested with self-preservation, then you want to take the one that will add to your grit, because that's going to be a major power up for you. That's going to like double or more your grit, I would imagine.
Yeah. But that Overcome is really where my character is going to be working in an offensive capability, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Getting the broad bonus to Overcome is going to be huge all the time.
Yeah, so I think I'll go with that Force of Personality.
Yep.
And like I said, I think I might have a couple points left when I actually sit down and make certain I've got all my maths done right.
Of course.
If I've got that, I would definitely be looking at that other one, just because those both sounded huge.
Yep.
So I assigned was it qualities we call them?
Yep.
I assigned those to the powers. Then what do I move on to? I see bio is next.
Bio. That's it. I mean, you yourself have qualities as well, but I think they're the same ones. Mystery, expertise, physical. And so you go to bio. Scrolling down to it.
I only partially processed when you were talking about it before because I was reading.
Problem. So yeah. This is basically you're saying, oh, Alice, you know what we didn't get? Like where you live and what you do, other than heroism right now.
Yeah, I wasn't. I haven't broken out of the lab. I'm allowed out now because they. So, I have, I live there because, like I said, one of my quirks was that they have an oversight over me.
Yep. So the bio is kind of like where you came from. For you, with a mysterious origin, you're going to pick up at some point in your story with like when you got your powers, maybe, or just immediately after that, your first mission. But it also encapsulates what skills you have that are outside of powers. So for you, same thing. Like observant might be a good skill, or maybe you speak multiple languages as a spy. That would be a good skill to take, something like that. And also the big thing that comes from your bio, in addition to like how you make a living, where you live, what you do on a day-to-day basis, if anything, in addition to superheroism, is your anchor, which is generally speaking, a civilian, a normal human person who lives and works in Union City, who you have a connection to, who you care about.
I would definitely say for that anchor, for skills, like you say, linguist, computers we talked about, that kind of thing, to allow me, I might not be the best with computers, I'm probably a pretty good linguist, and I think that actually fits into that unknown origin, is that I just seem to have a lot of languages. Awesome. And so, stuff that would kind of get me around in that spy job. But for that backstory, I'm kind of thinking of that, classic, the lady that works at the diner found me in the streets with the memory wiped out, and she'd be my anchor. I first started just kind of helping people on the street and such to make it by, different odd jobs and such as I'm finding out about this stuff. I'm really, at this point in my life, I'm really trying to keep that mundane life, because I find that it grounds me to who am I actually versus who can I become, and that identity of the issue of identity of self versus the ability to take on everybody's identity. And so while I'm working in Union City, kind of as I end up being a private investigator type, then finally this governmental agency becomes aware of me and basically forces me into their service. They give me a reasonable amount of freedom, but they have definitely taken certain actions to ensure that I can't just slip the noose.
And it could be the same organization I'm in.
Yeah, is it one of those, the sword of Damocles over the waitress, or do they not know it's her, or?
I would probably say that they have made some not quite threats, but mentions of a certain restaurant or something like that. We can meet, and they kind of hit on, and they haven't gone out of their way to threaten that person, but say, if she seems important to you, so we're going to make certain that we know about her.
Yep. Great. Then that's sounds like you guys have your bio straightened out. There's a couple boxes that I think we need to fill in.
Derived characteristics.
I'm sorry?
Derived characteristics: dodge, defense, resist, overcome, those stats.
Yes. Yep. So for your dodge, that's going to be your ability. So it's a primary role. Now that you might want to make notes, like if you transform into something, the common powers you might take to up that dodge. But for right now, dodge is going to be your ability, your agility modifier.
Okay, so that's 2.
Yep.
For me. And defense?
Defenses, you have armor, right?
I do.
Alan?
I have a level 3 armor.
So you're going to make a note there of, when you're hit, what your armor does for you, what the damage reduction is. That's for the defenses box.
Okay.
Brandon, I don't think you have anything in defenses now, but you probably will have stuff that you might get from transformation that will fit in there. Maybe expert evasion or something.
Mm-hmm.
Resist is going to come from your will. So that will just be your will number in there as a bonus. Again, these are all or dodge and resist and overcome are primary roles. Overcome. If there's anything like Brandon, you get your charm bonus to all overcome rolls, so that should be made. You should make a note of that there in the overcome box. And same thing, like if you have anything like gives you a bonus to speed rolls or agility, any random notes or powers that you have that affect different kinds of overcome.
Okay, so like my deduction.
Yes,
my deduction's giving me like a +4 to int overcomes.
Correct. So you'd write intellect overcome +4 and maybe in parentheses deduction, and then you can write up the full deduction on the second page in the power box. But for right now, just as a kind of marker, so that you remember every time you look at that big overcome box, like, right, when I'm intelligence overcoming, I get a bonus because I'm deductive.
And so now if I'm trying to use my charm overcome, I'm adding my charm twice, effectively.
Effectively, yep. And then in the bottom of that overcome box, oh no, grit's up top. There we are. So that's overcome, and then below that is attack. For you guys right now, just as a base, it's going to be your aim. So your attack, you can write in the attack whatever it is, like punch or whirring, rotating arms, fans, I believe is the short phrase for that. And then next to that, the bonus would be your aim. And below that, damage and effects.
Sorry, I just got distracted for just a second. What was I filling in?
Below overcome is the attack box. Now, there are characters who will have multiple attacks, and you can utilize that second page for those. But this is just a general, for your most common attack. So in the box that says attack, you'll write whatever it is, whether it's like you have a gun or a punch or whatever your most common attack is.
Okay.
And then the bonus for that will be whatever your aim is, plus any bonuses that you got from any powers that you have. But generally, it's your aim bonus.
Okay, great.
And then damage and effects. The base damage for any given attack in Union City Heroes is a D4. There's lots and lots of ways to modify that damage. I'm sure you guys will take stuff as you transform that are just going to boost that damage. But for right now, if it's a melee attack or a thrown attack, it's a D4 plus your strength. If it's any other kind of ranged attack, it's just a D4.
Okay. Cool. I do a D4 plus 5 to start with.
Yeah, there you go.
D4 plus 1, baby. I'm a magic missile.
Yeah. A level 1 or 2 magic missile. And finally, in the bottom...
I'm a maxed out magic missile. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a wizard who would cast his magic missiles like almost Sailor Moon style, like do the hands across, and each one had a little red dot glowing at it that he'd
I,
out.
yeah, I'm a single missile because I throw out more for more dice, but yeah, single missile maxed out.
Yes.
Okay.
So the bottom left is the final thing, which is maneuver and chase, both of which, unless you have flight or other things that modify it. Oh, I think you have
Rocket
transport.
boots. Yeah, I have transport, so rocket boots.
Yep. So your speed will be your maneuver. Generally speaking, the rocket boots might boost that depending on what you took for transport. And same thing for chase. Chase is just your speed roll or your speed modifier, and there's lots of things that will modify that as well.
Okay.
That's awesome. I had a great time coming up with this. It's I feel I ended up with a character I would not have been able to get in a lot of games without a lot of technical knowledge, and things in this were really set up to just kind of lead you into that having an ability specifically with deduction in mind.
Thank you. Yeah. And hopefully there's a lot of different ways you can utilize these powers to make it that easy and that fun, and hopefully quick to come up with a pretty complicated character who's crunchy enough to be fun and able to be used on an ongoing basis, but that doesn't take a tremendous amount of gamer knowledge to build effectively.
I think that was a lot of fun, and yeah, there's definitely just enough crunch to really make it worthwhile for people who like crunch, like at my. I like to have something to sink my teeth into, so I like the width and depth that it goes into, definitely for me. And I had a lot of fun making characters. So yeah, thank you so much for walking us through this and giving everyone a peek into how you make characters in Union City Heroes. And I can't wait for our next actual play where it isn't just a 4-hour boss fight, so we can show them how
Yes.
the rest of it plays. So.
Yeah, next time, hopefully we see these two characters, and they will take part in our upcoming, hopefully this month, introductory adventure, Jurassic Shakedown.
Awesome. Ooh, Alloy.
Are we going to see the Pterodon?
Then we're going to see the Pteranodon. Yep, the Pteranodon of the Dino Mafia and all his Dino Mobsters. So,
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, Blades. Thank you so much for watching another Babies with Knives video. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and come join the conversation on our Discord server.
If you want to keep content like this coming, come check out our Patreon and consider subscribing. All links for this is provided in the description below. And remember, come back next time to get honed!